we're going to talk about self-perception, how we perceive ourselves in social settings. And the first and arguably most important part of this is the self-concept, who you see yourself as. So, who are you? Who do you see yourself as? How would you define yourself? And the self is a combination of traits, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors, and these all interact with each other to make up who we are and to give us a concept of this might be the person I am. But our self-concept is created by two main factors. The first one is self-perception, and this is when we draw conclusions about who we are by observing our behavior. So if we do a certain thing, then we might step back and think, oh, I might be that person. So like say we get invited to a party and your initial reaction is like, oh, but I just want to stay home. Then you think, I might be an introvert rather than an extrovert. I don't want to go to the party. And the second factor of the self-concept is social comparison. So not only do we observe our own behavior, but then we also compare that to the behavior of other people. So do we behave like this person, or is our behavior different from that person? And if so, why? Is it worse? Is it better? Is it just different? And why is it different? So we're trying to figure out where we fit in socially, who we are in a social construct. So we also constantly are self-monitoring ourselves, or at least we should be. We should monitor who we are and what we're doing. So self-monitoring is our ability to regulate our behavior, specifically to meet the demands and norms of a certain social situation. So we change our behavior based on what is happening, based on who we're with and what the situation is. And that is not being fake or anything. We still are who we are, but we adapt to what is happening. And people that are good at this are less likely to let their attitudes influence their behavior in a social setting. So this is important because attitudes can really get you into trouble, like especially if you have negative attitudes. So an example of this is let's say you got invited to that party and you were really excited to go and you did want to go. Maybe you're an extrovert. So you got invited to the party. It's your friend's party. It's not your party. They invited the people. You had no control over it. And when you get there, you notice Greg. You really don't like Greg. You have a really bad attitude towards him. But the social situation is that it's your friend's party, and most of the people there like Greg. They have a good attitude towards them, and it is a pleasant atmosphere. So, if you're good at self-monitoring, you primarily use this situation and match that behavior. So you're able to hamper that bad attitudes towards Greg to let the other people have fun at the party, to not let that one person at the party ruin the whole thing for you. People with low self-monitoring primarily use their attitudes. They can't get over the fact that Greg's there. They really don't like him. And they might pick a fight with him, even So even when the situation suggests that it's not a good idea, they might show their attitudes. So if everybody else is friends with Greg and you start picking a fight, that might ruin the party. That might, get people upset. I'm sure you've probably experienced something like this before. So there are two ways to do this. You want to regulate your attitudes and meet the norms of your social situation. And so if we're trying constantly to meet the norms of a social situation, then we're constantly changing our behaviors, and it might get to the point where we're doing things we don't want to do, or things that don't adhere to our self-concept, maybe. So how do we protect our self-perception when this happens? And a big factor of this is called cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is the discomfort that we experience when our behavior or new information conflicts with our beliefs, morals, or attitudes. So we might do something that we know is wrong, and that makes us feel uncomfortable. But then we try to remove the discomfort, and we can do this multiple ways. So we relieve the discomfort by either rejecting it or avoiding it. We can rationalize it. So we said, yes, I did this behavior and I don't agree with it, but I had to do it. That I had no choice. Or you can reconcile with it. You can say, yeah, I did that behavior and I don't believe in it. So I either need to change my behavior or I need to change my beliefs. And the reject or avoid is most common when you are experiencing new information. So that conflicts with your attitudes, morals, or beliefs. So when you're given new information that you don't believe in, you can just reject it. Or you can rationalize it. Or you can reconcile with it and maybe change your beliefs. So how we know that this is a thing is this is the first experiment that showed that cognitive dissonance really happens. As an experiment by Festinger and Carl Smith. What they did is they gathered a group of male students to complete boring tasks. So they designed it specifically to be boring. That was the goal. They did not want it to be fun. They wanted it to be super monotonous. And they paid half of the guys $1, and then the other half of the guys $10. Then, after that, they asked them to rate how enjoyable the tasks were. The results showed that the $1 group rated the tasks as more enjoyable. So that's kind of weird, right? Why did this happen? Well, because of cognitive dissonance. They did really boring tasks for $1. They did a behavior that conflicts with their attitude. So they did a really boring behavior and they have a negative attitude towards something boring. And there wasn't a lot of benefit to it. So they had more cognitive dissonance. They rationalized doing it more. They rationalized that it was more fun. Because the other group didn't need to do that. They were like, oh, I did the boring stuff because I earned $10. Whereas the $1 group was like, I didn't really earn much, but I guess I enjoyed it. That is cognitive dissonance. So then there's also self-esteem. So how do we have confidence in our own worth or abilities? How do we feel about ourselves? How do we feel that we're capable of doing things? And the big question about, well, there's multiple questions. The big questions about self-esteem is it trait versus state? So how we talked about personality, is it a trait where it doesn't change? Does people with high self-esteem have high self-esteem throughout their entire life and that doesn't change? And same with low self-esteem. Or is it state, where your self-esteem changes based on your situation, where you can have really, really low self-esteem at one point and then really, really, really high self-esteem at another point? And is it general or specific? Can you have, do you just have a general self-esteem? Are you just overall confident in your own abilities? Or can you be confident in specific abilities? So let's talk about this for a little bit. So this is what trait self-esteem would look like. This is time and self-esteem. So this person has fairly high self-esteem, but across time it stays the same. This is a stable baseline. And this is how state self-esteem would look. Across time it changes a lot, and it has major unpredictable fluctuations. But the thing is, neither of these is what really happens in real life. What really happens in real life is more like this line right here. It does change some, but it kind of stays along a certain area. There's minor fluctuations around a stable baseline. So you could say it's either a state-like trait or a trait-like state. So it has a baseline, but it can change. It's a little bit of both. And then there's general self-esteem. There's measures of this, the global self-worth, how much you think you're worth. So how they measure this is, on the whole, I'm satisfied with myself. That is a global sentence about self-esteem. I have high self-esteem. And then you would ask these in a measure of global self-esteem, and on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being highly disagree and 5 being highly agree. And they find that these scales are reliable over time because they have a fairly stable baseline of self-esteem. And then they also have measures of specific self-esteem. So this could be appearance. So I feel satisfied with the way my body looks right now. It could be social. I feel that others respect and admire me. Performance. I feel confident that I understand things. You can definitely be more confident in one of these than the other. That is very possible. So, the question of self-esteem is that high scorers see themselves as academically competent, intelligent, socially skilled, athletic, and physically attractive. Are they actually all of the above? Are they actually competent, intelligent, and skilled and attractive as they think they are? Or is it just confidence? Because self-esteem is the belief in yourself. It's the belief that you have the abilities, the belief that you are capable. Well, there is evidence that self-esteem and confidence are related to each other. It is true. So the higher your self-esteem is, the more confident you tend to be. And this begs the question of, did self-esteem improve the competence, or was it the result of being competent? So what came first? Was being good at academics already just improve your self-esteem for that? Or does being confident in your abilities to do academic work improve your competence in academia? It could be a little bit of both. Confidence does help to a point, but also competence, being successful, boosts your confidence that you can do things.